Welcome to Family Math Workshop Part 2, where we're going to discuss learning for understanding, going beyond the rote memory to make sure your student has a strong math foundation. Learning for understanding is going beyond rote memory. And for many of us, that is how we were taught and perhaps spent many years teaching, of just focusing on memorizing math facts. But the truth is, this is not a very effective way to learn or to teach, especially for our students with learning struggles. They need to know the how and why of math and how to apply it in every day. You need to understand, to continue to develop that number sense. We talked about that briefly in workshop number 1. That number sense is that understanding of more or less, before, after, orders of numbers, first, second, third, symbols, being able to understand this plus versus a minus, making number comparison, and so forth. They need to build that strong number sense. Let me give you something to think about. Have you ever thought about looking at a pair of dice and seeing dots on it? You see it and recognize 5 without even thinking. But our students with poor number sense, they just see dots. So by giving them more and developing more and really focusing on that, that's why at Learning with Grace, they're doing tanagrams, they're doing puzzles, they're doing activities that maybe to you seems like a waste of time. But for that student, it is not. It is essential. Those skills and those little exercises are working on building that number sense, learning for understanding. So parents and teachers, especially if you are not the one that's ever struggled with math, this is hard for you. And so many of these things don't make sense to you, but they do work in the brain of our students, and it will help them to develop that number sense, to develop that understanding, so that they are capable of going on and mastering math. Manipulatives. They are so important, and they are essential for the student with math struggles. Have students use them to prove their answer, even if they did not use them to come up with the answer. We'll give you an example of a lesson plan and another link you can watch on how you can use things around your house as for your math toolbox to make sure your students have that hands-on activity to help them do their math. You might have noticed in the previous slide, it said mediating math. I want to spend a little time on that. So often, we don't try to engage our students. We're not intentional with our questions. We give them a math problem, 2 plus 2, and they say 4, and you're like, great, let's move on. But instead, could we ask questions? Take any math and say, well, what is your estimation? Is that closer or higher than a number? Is that a reasonable answer? And always ask them, how did you come up with that answer? This one will surprise you, because sometimes students may be taking a really long way of doing something because they're sitting there counting or doing dashes for 20 times 3, and they've just made 20 dashes. Then this is an opportunity to show them how to do it maybe a better way. But you won't know that if you don't ask. And then prove it. Are you right? I love to ask that question, even if students are wrong or right, that they can prove their answer. And if they did make a math mistake, this is their chance to catch it. And boy, do we love mistakes in math, because they are such a learning opportunity. So they're not really mistakes. They're just that chance to learn even more. Another thing we often think about, or don't think about, is Is there another way to come with that? I'll give you an example of that later. And especially if it's something new, is this like anything else you have done? Sometimes, again, you give them a new concept and it's daunting, it's scary. But if you reduce that math anxiety and bring it to them to something else they have done. I love the quote at the bottom. If you study to remember, you will forget. But if you study to understand, you will remember. Here's an example of different ways to do this. How did you come up with this answer? Some may see this 16 minus or divided by 4 and immediately know the answer. Others might have to take the time to write it out in a bracket. Some may struggle with this and have to write it out this way. They take 16, they cut it in half, then they cut it in half again until they get it divided by 4. Some may even need to draw it out. This is a great way to even say, can you prove it? Can you double check your answer? And eventually they will want to get away from all those tally marks, but it's still a good resource to go back and say, are you right? Can you show your work? Again, building that number sense by having that, wow, I see it now. If I have 16 squares, I'm cutting it into 4. I see it now. And they may need this because these are just numbers that don't make sense. Another way to describe this problem is a quarter of 16 is 4. So this is going to challenge especially our students that may grasp the division pretty fast. Challenge them more. How else could you say it? And then here's our application. How would you put this in a story problem? Why would you need to even know a quarter of 16? What would you do with the answer once you got it? So this is definitely a great party planning, and let them figure it out. Again, pizza is a great tool for this one as well. But this is just an example of showing there are many ways to come up with the same answer. Here's an example of how to use a story in our math.
Use Among Us to help us learn a very important math concept today. So the question is, who is the murderer? The math concept Among Us is going to help us learn today is the order of operation. What's the order of operation? Well, first is to do everything in a particular order. We are going to do the parentheses first. Then we're going to do the exponents. Then you multiply. Then you divide. And then after that, we are going to add, and final step is subtract. That is the order of operation I need you to memorize. And Among Us is going to help us do this task. So first of all, in the game, to find the imposter, you must first do this task. And that is going to be the parentheses. I want you to think of this as walls. So the first thing you do in Among Us is find those secret rooms. So do inside the parentheses first, the secret rooms. Second thing you need to do is the exponents. Well, in Among Us, you need key cards. I want you to think of exponents. They are small things, and they are the key. So keys are small and needed to solve the puzzle. Thirdly, after finding the secret room, after finding the keys, you must do this. You must multiply. You know how important it is to have lots of crewmates in this game, so you want to multiply your crewmates to help you find the killer. After you have done the secret rooms, found the key, multiplied your crew members, you are going to divide. You want to divide out your suspects so you can narrow down the search for that imposter. After you found the secret room, found the keys, multiplied your classmates are crewmates. You divided your suspects. You need to add up the clues. Think of all the things that have been said and you have seen. Then the final step is to take away those liars. You want to subtract. And once you have subtracted all those liars, you are left with the killer. You would have found the imposter, and you are the winner. So let's review. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. And how do we remember that? Well, you need to find those secret rooms. Then, key cards. Small things are the key. Then multiply those crewmates. Divide those sus. Add up the clues and subtract the liars, and you will not only be the winner of the Among Us game, but you will have come up with the correct math problem. Let's look. As you can see here, they did inside the walls. They did the parentheses problems first. Next, they did the small exponents. That's the key. Then they multiplied their crewmates. Then they divided out their suspects. And then next, they added up the clues. And then subtract the liars. And they now have the correct math solution to their problem. So Among Us, we want to thank them for their help, for helping us to remember this fact. And keep an eye out. You never know when Among Us will show up again. And I'm sure we'll kill it.
It is an activity break. Please do a simple math problem with your student. You can do the one provided, or you can grab out that homework and do one they need to actually get done. I want to challenge you to take these questions that were presented and see how many you can ask with your student. You know, you might hear, wow, this takes really long. This is going to double our homework time. This is going to double our time. You know what I say to that? That's okay. As a teacher, I would rather see 2 math problems completed with complete understanding, with building number sense, than a whole page of math problems, which, by the way, to our kids with learning struggles, you might as well ask them to climb a mountain, because that when they see that whole page of math problems, that's what they see, a mountain. So take 2 and do them well. Do less better than more with poor understanding. Education is not the filling of a bucket, rather the lighting of a fire. So enjoy this activity and see how much of this could you do every single day with your student. Thank you.